All right, in this video, we're going to look at function blocks. In a previous video, we did a function called AI scaling. We're going to do a function block that's going to do about the same thing, but we'll show you some of the differences. So we'll do AI FB, and we're going to crack this open. We're going to do structured text. We're going to pin the variables so I can see them at the top, and here's our code. So in the function, this is where you would set the output. There's no need to do that here. The outputs and inputs are done in the variables list. So let's do W for word, and we'll do AI1. Actually, we'll just do AI. We know it's going to be a word because that's what comes from the PLC. And the usage, if you'll notice, we now have more options. We have input, output, in, out, external, and instance. So this is going to be an input. We are going to have our scale high. That's going to be a real number. And that's also going to be an input. We're going to do our scale low. That's also going to be a real number, and that's also going to be an input. Outputs. So let's do a couple things. Let's actually give you a raw integer value out and the scaled value out. So if we do I raw, we'll make that an integer, and we'll make that an output. And then we'll also make an R scaled. That's going to be a real number, and that is also going to be an output. So whereas in the function, we were only allowed one output, and it was named the function, in a function block, we are allowed to have multiple inputs and multiple outputs. So what I'm going to do is actually grab this scaling code because it's already done. And we'll go ahead and just adjust it to be what we need. So WAI was our input. We have our scale high minus our scale low plus our scale low. And then we'll just this to be the output, which is our scaled. Right? So that should do the same thing as our function, some slightly different variable names, but we can also give ourselves just a raw integer output. So we know the count is 0 to 30,000. For me, I can't convert a word in real time to an integer to figure out where we are in the scale. So I'm just going to create an output that does that for us. So if we take I raw and then we make that to an integer because we need to get from a word to an int, and then we do our scaled, or actually we don't want our scaled, we want WAI. So now we have two outputs. We have a scaled output and we have just a word turned into an integer. So if we go ahead and add this to our IO testing, now the cool part about function blocks is you can see them. So let's add a ladder diagram just so we have a little bit better idea of what's going on. So if we grab this AIFB, you'll notice that we now have WAI, our scale high, our scale low, our raw output, and our scaled output. If we go back to our function block, say we want the R scale to be on the top for whatever reason. Maybe you think it's cleaner, maybe that's the most used item. We can actually move this up one. Now, if we go back to our IO testing and we update the function, now you'll see that R scaled is above I raw. So it is possible to move the variables around and the inputs around so that they make logical sense to you by just swapping their place in the order. So whichever one is top on the input, will be the top. And if this was down here, it doesn't matter because it's still the number 1, number 2, and number 3. And then again, output would be 1 and 2. I could even move this down here. And if we'll notice that it doesn't change the block. If we don't even have the ability to update the block because nothing's been changed. So let's go ahead and attach some variables to this. So let's take the EAI1, which is our raw input coming from the PLC. Our R scale high is going to be that 10.0 again, and our R scale low is going to be 0.0 again. Now I don't need to attach anything to the outputs in this function block. We'll be able to just see those values come out. So if we go ahead and write and start this project, and once the controller has loaded the configuration, we can go to IO testing. We can go to our ladder code that I just created, and you'll see that we now have our word input, our scale high, our scale low, and our R scaled along with our raw value. So of 0 to 30,000 counts, we're at 22,151, and our R scale value is 7.38, which is close to what's on my screen here. If we adjust this value, these values will change and the R scaled will change as well. So quick look at function blocks. Hope this helps. Again, a function and a function block are two different things and they have two different use cases. So this was just a quick look at creating a function block.